Just check. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm here with Michelle from Happy Inside. Let me just check quickly that this is working because I'm using a third-party software. Yep, and it seems to be. So if you join us and you're watching live, say hi. Let us know. Today we're going to talk about a topic that we've kind of touched on once, but we want to revisit this. How emotions can affect your gut, essentially. So Michelle talks about this every day, I think, for many for many hours. So she's definitely the person that we want to talk about. Can you? Okay, a couple of people said hello. Michelle, do you want to say something? Can you guys let us know you can hear Michelle as well?
Yeah, hi guys, welcome. I can see a couple of people there. Thanks so much for joining. Give us a wave or a hi. Oh, hello. Yes, we're on.
Cool. So let us know if you don't hear either of us or something, but I'm pretty sure it works. So let's jump into it, Michelle. So how emotions can affect your gut. So in the kind of notes here, I have like emotions. The first thing is emotions are the body's representation of a thought.
Yep, good place to start. So the starting point, if you're feeling emotions, which most of us will, and they might be good ones, not so good ones, essentially we can trace it back to a thought. So thoughts happen as the starting point. That's where the emotions come from. So if we, and you said, I talk about this every day. I absolutely talk about this every day. It's people come to me, with gut symptoms, usually, sometimes a couple of other chronic ailments, but often what comes with those gut symptoms is an incredible amount of emotion. You guys that are listening might have experienced stress, anxiety, overwhelm, frustration, irritation, helplessness, all those things that come with kind of chronic conditions that you're having a really hard time resolving. And they affect the gut, unfortunately. But there's a way that we can stop it affecting the gut. So we're not stopping emotions altogether, but we're stopping the effect that has on the gut. And I'll talk about that a bit later. But let me give an example. So when I'm talking about emotions, I'm going to simplify it and kind of throw those emotions into 3 buckets or 3 baskets. So if you imagine that you've got 3 sitting in front of you, the middle one's neutral. And then say on the left side, we've got the negative and the right side, we've got the positive. And if we have like a neutral kind of thought, which might be looking at the paint on the wall, unless you hate the paint, but generally the paint on the wall is not going to activate any type of emotion in us. So we look at the paint on the wall and it's just neutral. It's kind of beige. Nothing happens within us. And then we can, on the right bucket, we can think about something positive. The best time that we had in our life, the most amazing holiday we took, when our child was born, our wedding day. There's lots of things we can think of, something that we got an award, we were excited about something. If we think about those events or circumstances, we can generally generate a particular feeling in our body. And it might be happiness or joy or tenderness or love or something like that. And we can feel it. It's a direct correlation between what we think and what we feel. And on the other bucket or basket, on the negative side, that also happens. So if you think about something that makes you really unhappy, something that stresses you out, something horrible that happened, a terrible event in your life, the death of a loved one, breakup of a relationship, those kinds of things. Generally, you can probably start to feel something in your body about that too.
What about when you think you've lost your wallet or your phone, which I do all the time?
Yep, you can do that. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, little things too. It doesn't have to be the big ones. Yeah, they're very distressing. Or like you said with the phone, when you have a brand new phone and you drop it for the first time, oh wow, that's overwhelming. That really hurts. That
Just
one.
that feeling of like, where's my purse or my wallet? And it's like in your gut straight away.
Yep.
It's like, I think everyone can. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? Can you like?
Yep.
So is that's an example, I guess, of the negative.
Yep, that's an absolute example. Yeah. So you'll see that there's correlation between what you're thinking, because that circumstance might not be happening right now, but we can imagine it. We can imagine what that would be like, and we can get a sense of what that would feel like in our body. So what with the negative ones, you'll find that the body tends to contract. So it's very subtle, but it kind of contracts in. It doesn't like it. It's, their irritation, anger, upset, distress, those kinds of feelings contract us. But the other ones that we talked about, the positive ones, they tend to expand us. They're opening, they're soft. So there's a very different reaction that the body has with those. So we can see none of us are going through this in this call. No one's, losing their phone in this call. And, right now we're just here, but we're thinking about those circumstances that could happen, and we can generate those feelings in the body. So I read a study once where they brought participants in and they put them under an MRI machine for their brain, and they gave them a lemon, and they had to eat a lemon, very sour. And what they did was they did an image of where their brain lights up when they're eating this lemon. Then they brought them back another time. They put them in the MRI machine. There was no lemon, but they read them a script about the sensations of eating a lemon, of what that would be like. And they MRI'd their brain, and the exact same parts of their brain lit up because they salivated the same, all the same things happened, and there was no lemon present. It was just because it was a thought and it was a memory, it was a cognitive process that still activated those pathways in the brain and in the body. So our body doesn't know the difference between something that's real and something that's vividly imagined. It's pretty cool because we can use imagery in a good way.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that a useful thing? How do we, or is that more negative?
Yeah, it's useful. So like in, gut-directed imagery or gut-directed hypnotherapy, it's useful because we're using strong imagery to create feelings and sensations and reactions in the body that we want to happen. So we're activating the rest and digest response because we're calming down the nervous system. So we're regulating the digestive processes. So that's an example of how we can use our mind and vivid imagery through our mind to affect us in a positive way.
Okay. So guys, also we'll do questions at the end if there's time. So if you get questions as we go, write them in the comments, okay? And let's try to get as much as we can from Michelle here and dig into her brain. You said rest and digest. What is that? Just like your little fancy rhyme, or is that like a known, I don't know, terminology in your industry as a gut-directed therapist, or what does it mean?
I wish I could claim it, but I can't. It's part of our sympathetic nervous system. So we have, in our nervous system, we tend to have two states. We have our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic. So the rest and digest is the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the one that relaxes us, that calms us down, and that's why they call it rest and digest. Because when we're in a rested state, then our digestion works properly. On the flip side of that, when we are in our sympathetic nervous system, we are in fight, flight, or freeze. So that's the stress response that gets activated in us. And little things like you mentioned before, Joe, losing your phone, losing your wallet, that activates our stress response. So lots of little things. We get, sitting in traffic, running late for work, trying to do 10 million things before we even get to work in the morning, those kinds of things activate our stress response. And so whenever that's activated, digestion isn't working as well as it could. And that's not handy for if you've got gut struggles. Because then that's going to interfere with your body's ability to digest optimally, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So rest and digest is where we want to be. We want to be in the parasympathetic mode as often as possible, which is relaxed, essentially.
Okay. And it's thought like the point of the fight or flight or freeze goes back to ancestral days where that kept us alive from predator or danger, right? Whether to fight or whether to flee, or the flight response.
Yeah.
So very useful 10,000 BC, less useful now because it's more like it's not such an acute thing. We're not having the fight or flight like, oh, there's a bear, like run, or maybe you don't run. I don't think you're supposed to run from bears. Don't do that. Freeze. Yeah. So, but like that. So that's like an acute situation where it's like the bear's not with you 24 hours a day, right? That just happens and it goes. Whereas now, like, so why are people experiencing this fight or flight or freeze in the modern day?
Because we still have the primal part of our brain, essentially. So this primal part back here, that's what activates the fight or flight response. So we grew a frontal cortex as human beings. So this is what we have now to attempt to function on. But the primal part of our brain is instinctive. So it kind of responds before, our cognitive processes do. And as you said before, when we lived that long ago, that fight or flight response wasn't activated very often. But when it was activated, our body had a natural capacity to bring itself back to homeostasis, essentially, to activate the parasympathetic response again. And so off we go. We're okay, not a problem. And so the stress response can kick in, but then it turns off almost just as quickly once the danger's gone. But now in 2020, well, we kind of live in a state where we feel like there's danger all the time. And our thoughts create a lot of danger for us. Worrying, anxiety, stress. Stress is a cognitive process. It's mental distress. That's what stress is. So it's everything that happens up here. And then that activates that primal part of our brain because it says, oh, there must be something wrong. There's a threat. And so the primal part kicks into gear. Our heart rate kind of increases, our breathing increases, and, of course, our digestive tract gets affected because back when we were living in tribes on the land, our body was using all the available resources it could to save our life because it's about survival. So a lot of resources are used by the digestive tract because it's a huge organ. But in that moment, the body's very clever. It's doing everything it can to keep us alive. And so it says, we don't need to digest yesterday's lunch right now or last week's dinner because back then we probably didn't eat every day. And so it draws all the resources away for the heart and the lungs to push blood around the body. And in doing that, it says, I'm going to make one of two things happen. I'm either going to switch the digestive system off immediately, which does this, which will give you constipation, or I'm going to empty the contents of the digestive system immediately, and you'll end up with diarrhea and or vomiting. Because that's what it's doing. It's attempting to say, I need everything I can get right now. You're not important just in this moment. But, of course, when that used to happen on occasion, it was okay. It was all right if our digestive system shut off temporarily, for half an hour. But now that's happening in the digestion all the time, like every day of the week or multiple times a day. We're kind of swinging like this, or we've swung up into our stress response, so our sympathetic nervous system, but we don't really get a chance to come all the way back down. We might come back down, but only to here, and then we travel along here. When actually we come all the way back down to here, which is why things like exercise, meditation, yoga, imagery, those kinds of things are really important to us now in our life. We need to have ways to slow down.
Does sleeping lower that stress level? And what about watching Netflix?
It can, yeah. It depends. And if it relaxes your body, for sure. And if you're a good sleeper, if you're not, it depends. If you have unconscious things that happen while you're sleeping, then in kind of chronic conditions, it might not help so much, but generally it does. People will say, if I wake up in the morning, I'm relaxed until I start thinking. Right? Until the brain switches on.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people here, like, give me a yes if one of you guys watching, but they, like, a lot of our clients they wake up and they're thinking about their gut immediately upon waking. Maybe the gut's already making noises or feels a bit funny. And and then they're either thinking about their gut issues or food, what they can eat or can't eat, or what's coming up. Like,
yep, that's it. It's
the whole day.
Yeah. So what happens is you wake up in the morning, those thoughts come on board straight away, and they tend to be automatic. Like Joe said, give us a yes if this is happening for you, because I hear about this a lot and intervene on this a lot as well. So it's automatic. They kind of come on board. It's not like you're saying, okay, right, I'm going to start thinking about my gut now. It just happens because it's so habitual. And they're all worrisome kind of anticipatory thoughts, like you were saying, oh my God, am I going to have symptoms today? Do I need to go to the bathroom yet? Will I have time to go to the bathroom before I go to work? I don't want to use the toilets at work, and I need to have a bowel movement before I leave. And or what about the bus ride in or the train in? And am I going to make it today? And there's just so many. But what happens if we relate this back to the thoughts that we're talking about today? Those kinds of thoughts fall into the negative basket. And so remember, those kinds of thoughts contract the body because it's stress. So as soon as we contract the body, our nervous system's activated. We're now in our sympathetic stress response. And whenever sympathetic stress response is activated, it's affecting our digestive tract. So the very worst thing you can do, just say you're getting public transport into work, which is common. I hear this a lot. The very worst thing you can do for yourself is stress and worry about getting that transport into work. Am I going to make it? Where's the bathrooms? Is there one on the way if I'm desperate and I need to get off? I know I can get off there. I've heard it all before. It's really common. But those very thoughts are actually going to activate your digestive system. If you have diarrhea predominant symptoms, they will definitely activate your digestive tract. And you guys have probably noticed it as well. A lot of my clients tell me, yep, I can see the correlation immediately. I get stressed and worried about something of that sort, and then my bowel starts to go and I start to feel like I need to go to the toilet. And it's because your body's doing exactly what it's designed to do.
When we'll talk about we'll definitely touch on, like, well, what can you do about it or where should you start? But I want to ask you about stress.
Yeah.
Because stress is like, I read that stress is like, it's how you perceive a situation occurring to you. Like, because what I find sitting in traffic today, like, I found very stressful, but the person in front of me might not have been stressed at all, and they're in the same traffic. They also have somewhere to be. So, like, is that what stress is? It's kind of like our perception of what's happening?
Mostly, yeah. I mean, there's going to be times, of course, like COVID, most of us are stressed during the COVID kind of period and the lockdowns, the pandemic. And it's natural for us to feel a level of stress about that. And you can see across the world as a whole, we generally all think similar thoughts about that. It's worrisome. We don't want to die. We want to look after ourselves. We want our loved ones to be okay. We want to feel safe and protected. And so we keep up with the news, and we find out what do we need to do so that we can keep that happening. So that just creates a kind of, I guess, a level of stress across society that we all experience. But then we're going to experience COVID in different ways. Like, it's going to affect each of us differently because of the way that we think about it, exactly like you were saying. So stress, I mentioned before, it's a cognitive, mental process. So we can feel stress in the body, but remember, stress is, or that tension in the body is just a representation of what's going on up here. So it is exactly what we think about it, how we think about it, how we perceive, where our thoughts are. If we go back to those three baskets, negative, neutral, and positive. So if you think about where were most of my thoughts, or where are most of my thoughts most of the day, then that can give a pretty good indication of how you're going to be feeling during the day and by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You've put here, chronic unresolved emotions or acute stress activate stress response, which is designed to affect your gut. So, and I think we've touched on that before. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So when you say these unresolved emotions or acute stress are designed to affect the gut, is that what you're referring to about, hey, it's taking blood away from the digestive tract because it demands so much, and
precisely.
so that it can go to the brain so you can think, and the heart, so you can think fast or run or whatever. And that's how it's affecting your gut. It's to do with the blood flow.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. That's exactly how it's the blood flow. It's the nervous system, so the chemicals that are pumping through the body. If we think about ourselves in a biological fashion, then that's what it's meant to be doing. It's designed to be doing that. And so it begs the question, well, why is it doing that all the time? And how does it not do that? It's really about the environment, and it's, it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Joe. It's how we think about it, right? So if we can get into a state where we go, oh, my gut's terrible. I wish I didn't have this one. It's not fair. Why me? This shouldn't be happening. It's so hard. It makes my life really difficult. It's a really common type of thought processes to get into. But if we can pause and think about it differently and go, okay, hang on a minute. My body's actually wired to do this. So it's doing the very thing it's meant to be doing, so which means it's wired correctly. Why is it doing this all the time? Because this is the environment that it lives in. I'm creating the environment up here. So the thoughts that I have all day long. So guys, if you're listening, if you were to think of a pie chart and you were to mark out a percentage of that pie chart that you were worrying and stressing either about everything or even just about your symptoms or diet or reactions in your body, get a sense of what percentage your mind is in that place. Is it 25% of your day? Is it 50%, 75%, 90%? I mean, I've had clients tell me, it's more than 90% of my day. And so only 10% of your day is maybe having an opportunity to go in to that rest and digest state. And it's likely that because it's only 10%, it's not going to get there. That's a big ask, So we have to think about, what environment am I creating for myself, for my body? Because ultimately I'm the master of it. I'm in the driver's seat. And so we can kind of flip from feeling like the body's against us to coming into a place where we're empowered where we go, hang on a minute, I'm in charge here. I can determine this. I can facilitate and create an environment in my body that's actually going to benefit my digestion, that's going to benefit my stress levels, that's going to benefit my overall health and well-being. And you have the capacity. Everyone has the capacity to do that. It's just about knowing how to do it. But it's a different way of thinking. It's a different perception, the word that you were using before. And it can soften you because you go, wow, okay, well, I'm empowered. I have the capacity to actually do something about this here instead of feeling helpless or defeated. I can do something.
Mm-hmm. I actually have, like when clients join, there's like a module area, and module 1 is about fault versus responsibility. And it's all about like saying you have to take responsibility for your situation. It doesn't mean it's your fault of what happened or why you are where you are necessarily. But if you don't, what's the definition I heard? Like responsibility is like it gives you the ability to respond. That's like a fun way to remember. What's responsibility? Well, if you take responsibility, now you empower yourself with the ability to respond to the situation and make a change the trajectory of your life. And that just reminded me of what you were saying about like, you need to sort of shift your perspective instead of feeling like the victim almost, until you shift away from that and really just say, all right, well, I'm in charge here. I'm going to do something about it. Until you do that, nothing can change. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. And, I think it's worth kind of giving permission here and saying it's okay that you may have been stuck in this loop for a long time, because this is not something people teach us. It's not, we don't learn it at school. I don't know many parents that are teaching their kids this. And especially when it comes to gut, which is my specialty, no one's out there saying to you, hey, the environment that you create in your mind is going to affect your body and therefore is going to benefit your digestive system. There's no GP and doctor and gastroenterologist out there that's having this chat to you. Unfortunately, I wish there was, because then we could get it resolved easier and sooner for you. But yeah, essentially, it's okay. I kind of want to, I want to take that load off everybody and say it's all right that you're in this situation right now. But now that you know better, you can do better.
Yeah. The first stage of change is like the awareness, and for you to become aware, well, someone has to tell you essentially, or you have to be taught, or you have to discover that. And like you're saying, and no one talks about these things. I mean, even I've only learned about it in the past couple of years, and I've been in this industry since 2011. So what chance do other people have? But good. Okay. And remember, you guys, if you've got a question, if we've said something and you're like, well, what about, XYZ, then let us know in the comments. So let's move to, well, what should I do about it? And so just to clarify, and so this kind of stress or these emotions that are affecting our gut, it can be constipation or diarrhea or bloating or symptoms like that as well.
Yep, all of those symptoms. Yeah, anything that affects the digestion. It can even start up here. Often people report things like reflux that they can't get rid of. Reflux, in my experience, in my little slice of the pie, is tension, essentially, because our digestion moves downwards. But when we have tension in our digestive tract, it either halts it like this or it can kind of push it upwards. And so, it can start in the throat, it can start in the esophagus, the stomach, nausea, pain, tightness, something feeling stuck, as well as those kind of digestive symptoms like bloating, diarrhea, cramping, constipation, incomplete evacuation. any process of the digestive tract, because it all works together.
Super curious about reflux, because I get a lot of people have it, and they'll ask about it on our Q&A calls, and I can't always answer I can't always answer the other questions, but like the reflux ones in particular.
Yeah.
We don't know a lot about that from like say a FODMAP diet perspective, or the research on reflux, that like the doctors also don't really know that much. But so I've never actually heard that it might be also related to this, but it makes sense.
Can I mention a bit more about it?
Yes, please. Please.
So if you think about that, so the digestive tract is just a huge muscle. That's how it works. It's a muscle. And so think about it like this. And it's going like this. That's how it works.
And it's mouth all the way out.
All the way to the other end.
Tract.
Yeah, pretty much. So for the digestion to work, it has something called the migrating motor complex, which does this. And so it slowly moves everything down. And it does that about every 90 minutes. So if we didn't eat for 24 hours, it'll do it about every 90 minutes. Because we eat at various times, it might have done it half an hour ago. Its natural process, off it went. It's like, okay, I got some digesting to do. And then you have a meal. Well, it has to kick in again. So it starts again because you've been eating. So it's a muscle. So it goes like this. So if you start interfering with muscles through your nervous system, because that's where it gets the messages, right? That's how it knows to work. That's how my arms are moving right now, is through my nervous system. If you start interfering with that, and it either slows right down, goes really slow, or it doesn't happen every 90 minutes, or it's moving way too fast, then all of those processes aren't working so well. Now, your throat's a muscle, so your esophagus is a muscle, and you have, it moves into your stomach, and there's a flap over that valve. And often, they say that's what happens with reflux. So if you look at that from a medical kind of perspective, you'll have your stomach cavity here, and there's a valve that goes over the top up into your esophagus.
Esophageal sphincter.
Yeah, there you go. And so if this valve, and everything that's happening here is not working properly, it should just, when we eat, it just kind of closes. It stays closed. So the acid doesn't come back upwards. It's not meant to come back.
From the stomach. Right. It's contained.
Yeah, that's right. But if those muscles are upset, if they're not working properly and they're all confused, and all the electrical messages that are coming through the nervous system, if we're flooding it all the time with stress hormones, then it's doing all kinds of things. It's not like it's not functioning. It's all kind of dysregulated. And especially if it's tight, if there's tightening, then that tightening can push upwards, push upwards, push upwards. That's what vomiting is. Vomiting is when your brain sends signals to your gut to reverse its direction, because it's read that there's some kind of pathogen in the body. It's got little receptors. Your whole digestive tract has receptors, and it's when you eat something, it's constantly reading. Its little receptors are out there, and it's saying, is everything okay? What's in here? Right, it's all good to go. Send it through. But if it goes, whoa, wait on a minute, there's a pathogen in here, like you've just eaten some food that's got bacteria in it, and the body makes a decision and it says, we do not want that bacteria in the body. It's harmful and dangerous. And so it sends messages to the brain, it sends messages back down, and it starts to reverse, which is why vomiting is really hard work. And you can, if you've done a lot of vomiting, in a short period of time, you can feel quite sore, because you've moved a muscle that always goes downwards like this. Your body has reversed it to push up. So reflux can be the same. When we're talking about stress that's being held in the body, my little slice of the pie, stress, emotions, thought processes, everything that contributes, then that's one of the things I often talk with clients about. Don't worry about the reflux. As we relax you more and more, as your body stops getting those stress signals all the time, then that reflux should go.
I've had reflux twice, and it was definitely stress related, but it was like I experienced the stress, and then I had reflux for a couple of days after, like maybe a week after or something, and then it went away.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. I've had it too. It's just, it's unpleasant.
Can you, like, what about pain in a specific point in your digestive system? Is that ever like specific to kind of, the stress or your sort of mindset, or will that, if it's like a particular area, or will that usually be some sort of physiological, injury issue?
What I see commonly is the stomach. So actually, that's most common. I'm just thinking about this now. So when I work with clients and we might do some work around some event or circumstances or stressor in their life, we get nice and quiet, we get relaxed, we come into the body, and we bring about, again, thoughts. So we bring about in the mind, in the awareness, that event or circumstance that we want to get some resolution around, and then we see what's happening in the body. And it's so common that that clients will say to me, "Oh, my stomach's really tight," or they'll point to, it's like their stomach, sternum, chest area is really tight, and then that can correlate to below that, down into the bowel. So sometimes if it is a particular bowel area, especially low down, like in the colon, then that's usually physiological. There's either some contractions going on down there, or, it's a kind of heavy place. That's where the waste is sitting, waiting to move through. And it does a fair bit of work to move it through. Sometimes there's particular joins essentially in the digestive tract, like, or bends that move around. And sometimes clients will say there's always this one place in my bowel that I get this pain. And so it can be a bit physiological in that way. Yeah. Tension is really in the stomach.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about what should people do? So how can we start to resolve this or identify the issues? So first thing you've got here is like increase awareness of link between thoughts, emotions, and physical symptoms, particularly emotions. So tell us, what do you mean by that?
So often the case is that the emotional bit is missed. So we go thoughts, physical sensations, thoughts, physical sensations. And there's a number of reasons for that. Sometimes,
do you mean like think, if I go on this bus, then I'll have diarrhea, or I'll need to go to the toilet?
Yeah, no, the body. So it's really common for the body to get into a response. Okay, let me start back here. By the time your body is experiencing symptoms, and it can be pain, it can be constipation, diarrhea, it can be a gut disorder, it can be physical pain, it can be migraines, it can be autoimmune diseases, things like that, right? By the time your body is now experiencing a chronic health condition, what's happened usually is the emotion or the emotional aspect has been bypassed. So where we want to be is we go, I have this thought, it makes me feel this way emotionally. Yep. I have this event happening in my life. This is how I feel about it. Okay, I'm going to resolve that. This happened to me in my life. This is how it makes me feel. Okay, I'm going to resolve that. I'm going through a stressful time at work. Yep, this is stressful. I'm going to do some work with myself to keep on top of that, to look after myself, to have self-awareness so that I can manage this stress. That's the idea, right? But often that second part gets missed. And because it gets missed, so you've got the thought processes, I'm stressed, this is happening in my life, but you don't resolve it. You don't attend to it. You don't give it the time it needs to understand it, to work with it, or have the opportunity or know how to do that. And because it's an energy, as in, remember when we think about something positive, when we think about something negative, we can generate a particular feeling in our body. And if it's negative, it tends to contract us. So when it's negative, when there's that energy from the emotion there, especially if it's negative, if you don't do something with it, it has nowhere to go. It's in your body. It's a physical feeling. It's an emotion. It's in your body. And if you continue to not do something with it, it definitely has nowhere to go. It finds somewhere in your body, essentially, and it expresses itself. And so that's when you end up with chronic conditions and symptoms. I mean, heart attacks. Look at heart attacks. What's the number one cause of heart attacks? And I don't know, number one or two. One of them stress, another is diet and lifestyle, right? That'd be about right.
Which overlap. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the stress presenting sometimes measurable as high blood pressure or something like that as part of that.
Yep,
process.
Exactly. So stress and high blood pressure, I mean, there's a correlation right there that most of us get because we've heard about that for a long time and we know, yep, absolutely, that kind of tension in our body. Isn't it crazy? I reckon it's crazy, and I love the fact that I reckon it's crazy because it blows my mind that what goes on up here can actually affect the function of our heart. Like our cardiovascular system cannot work effectively because of what happens up here. So this is the same. We're talking about the same thing. We're just further down. We're in the digestive tract.
Yeah, or just the thought of something you're scared of, right, will increases your heart rate because your body's getting ready for this fight or flight or freeze. So for me, it might be public speaking on a stage, and my heart rate will be at maximum pulse. I didn't do anything physical, but this caused this. And so you're saying that, these kind of thoughts can also present in other areas of the body. It's doesn't just affect your heart.
Yep, exactly. It doesn't just affect your heart. It's anywhere. But it just so happens that you and I, and in this call, we're working with and talking to people whose body expresses it through their digestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so going back to emotions and energy, that gets trapped in the body. You either have to express it effectively or resolve it. And they're kind of the same thing. And often that bit's getting missed. And so the body just keeps expressing it. It's like a little tap on the shoulder. The body eventually goes, something's not working here. Something's out of balance. I need your attention. And that's the work that I do, with clients and say, okay, we're going to listen to the body. But it's about awareness. So we need to have an awareness, and we can start because the body's expressing symptoms. We can start with the symptoms and work backwards. So physical symptoms, let's say tightness in the stomach. If we think about a situation that we don't like, that we're afraid of, that's upsetting us, and we go, oh man, yeah, my stomach really jams up. I get a knot in my stomach, or I get butterflies in my stomach, something of that sort. Then we can go, okay, all right, so physical sensations here, I'm going to work with that. Go in through the physical sensation. What's the emotion that I'm holding in there? What is it? Oh my God, I'm so afraid. I'm really stressed out. I'm panicked. I'm upset. It could be a number of things, right? So then we go, okay, that's the feeling, that's the emotion. Then we trace that back. What is it that we're upset or afraid about? And we can trace that back to whatever that might be. And then there we go. So we've made the link backwards. But eventually, and we keep doing that, we keep making the link backwards. While ever there's symptoms there, we keep making that link backwards. And then eventually your self-awareness is going to increase. Then you start making the link forwards. You can go, oh, this situation's causing me to feel stressed. This situation's causing me to feel fearful or scared of this happening. And then guess what happens? The body doesn't need to express anything anymore because you're now just going thoughts, emotions, thoughts, emotions. Or you can just go emotions, thoughts. You can go back to that. So the physical body doesn't need to express anything anymore because you're not holding it. You're actually
Right.
you're aware of it. Thank you. Who said that? That was the best explanation.
I'm going to find it. So, okay. So, oh, Gian said that. So it's going to be, so emotions always there. And the problem is that these unresolved, we can call them emotions,
Yeah.
are, well, that we're keeping them in our body and they're going to present as physical symptoms.
Yep.
So to help start to reverse that process, or so that well, not reverse the process, so they don't present as physical symptoms, we then want the emotions to go back to thoughts. Is that?
Yeah, we link them back. Yeah, essentially, that's the place we link them back because that's
We
how
link
they.
them back and then they go away.
Well, we resolve them. Yeah. Well, it's not just the linking. You know, we can say, yeah, I'm afraid because I have to go on stage and speak in front of 150 people. How are you feeling, Joe?
Yeah, scared.
Yeah. And so you can go, okay, that's the link, right? So heart rate's increased. Yep, I'm scared because I'm going on stage to speak in front of 150 people. That on its own is not going to make that go away. There's more work to do, right? There's more diving into that. And that's the work that I do with people. There's more diving in to understand. We have to resolve it then. We can't just leave it. But if it, you know, sometimes we can. Sometimes that's possible just by knowing. But like if we're looking at, say, that bus situation or the train situation, getting up in the morning, having to go on public transport to get to where we need to go, and we're worried about bathroom availability, how am I going to get by with my symptoms? What if I have an accident? What if there's some urgency? Then we go, okay, we know that the body's in flight or fight. Whenever you think about that, there's that stress response. The digestive tract is overactivated now, and probably you're feeling fear. It's anxiety, apprehension. It's anticipation of a future event. So it's fear-based. So we go, okay, I know that I'm afraid. So what exactly are you afraid of? We go back. I'm afraid that I might not make it all the way to, work or to where I'm going to, and then I'm gonna, I'm gonna have really severe symptoms along the way, and I might have to stop, or I'm gonna get caught without a bathroom. I'm gonna have an accident. Okay, yeah, because that happened to me 3 years ago when I had food poisoning and I had to stop by the side of the road, and I had diarrhea on the side of the highway, and it was horrible, and I'm really afraid of that happening again. So then we go, right, what I talked about at the beginning of this talk is we know that we can create the environment in our body. And that by that kind of anticipatory thinking, we are creating an environment in our body where it is more likely we will have an accident on the way on the public transport, or more likely that we will need to stop on the way and find a bathroom in a hurry, because we're creating that environment. So what do we need to do in that situation is to not think that way, because that's where it starts. So we don't think that way in the first place. So we have to remember before we leave the house, actually right now I'm okay. Do I need to go to the bathroom right now? No, I'm okay. Well, then why would I need to go to the bathroom in the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes, on the way into work? I'm okay. And it's a bit more sophisticated than that. It becomes unique and individualized. But that's an example directly on, worry about gut symptoms. We need to reverse that back, take all of that out of it and get really clear and become aware, so that every morning when you go, oh, there's that old feeling again, right? That's the self-awareness. This is what I'm thinking. This is what's happening in my body physically. This is what I'm feeling. Now I'm going to put some practices in place so that I can change that pattern, that environment that I'm creating in my body.
And what if it's like you've just been dealing, or you've been living that way for years, and it's really like a belief, like you're just like, this is my reality. It can be fixed? Is that what you...
Yeah, absolutely. Easy. I mean, there's so many different ways. Like there's a belief is just a really strong thought that has strong emotion attached to it. That's all it is. So it just means it's ingrained. You've really cemented it in there, nice and strong. So I think is what you're saying. If we've cemented something in there, can we undo it? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Anything we can. It's like saying, I haven't exercised for 35 years. Can I still exercise? Yep, absolutely. We're not going to start, at high intensity training. We're going to start on things that are relevant for your body. What you need, where are your weaknesses, what can we work with straight away that's going to be most effective? And it can be things like exposure therapy. So it might be that we don't start with, okay, we don't want to expose you to the stressor to 100% straight away, because that's too stressful in the body. The nervous system's overactivated. It's very hard for you to talk yourself back down from that. So instead of, okay, tomorrow when you go to work, I just want you to think differently before you get on the bus or the train. That's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. What we're going to do is say, okay, let's go for a walk around the block for 10 minutes, a day, or 15 minutes a day, if that's not something you normally do. And if that's something you might be just worried about 20% being away from a bathroom, right? So we go, okay, 20% is manageable. So we're going to put some strategies and skills in place, and we're going to practice being away from a bathroom in a manageable environment, so that you can succeed at that, and so that you build confidence in your body and trust in your body. You go, yeah, you know what? After a few days or after a week, I was okay. I was actually fine to walk. I walked an extra 5 minutes actually, because I realized after a few days, I'm fine. I know I'm only 5 minutes away from the bathroom if ever I need to turn around and get back. And so therefore I'm fine. And so what we do is increase capacity on a manageable level until we get to the point where you go, oh, I can do this. It's okay. It's just training. It's training, just like weight training, exercise training.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. The more repetitions you do, but you need someone to tell you where to start, right? Like you're saying, you can't just, you haven't trained in 35 years. You can't just go and do a CrossFit workout. You need to just step up. Otherwise you're going to get injured, and you're going to
and you're going to feel like you're failing, right? You're going to like throw in the towel and feel bad about yourself because it didn't work for me. I can't do it. I'm a failure. You're not. It's just that you don't know how. But that's what I'm here for. Is I know the how when it comes to emotions and thought processes and behaviors that are related to gut symptoms, just like you know how when it comes to diet, and you know how when it comes to exercise. That's why we're here to help out.
Cool. All right, look, let's wrap it up. So if anyone has any questions, let us know, like about, I don't know, anything we said. If you were like, oh, but what about, with me it's different, or, there's something you're not sure about. If you have doubts about anything that we've said, now's the time. Let us know. And then Michelle, so let's just see if we get anyone. Otherwise we're almost an hour anyway. And so if people want to learn more about you, my lovely banner.
It's amazing.
So good.
Impress me all the time.
happyinside.com.au, and then is like your podcast still the best place to learn more about gut gut-directed therapy?
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah, there's lots of resources there. So on the website, you can find the podcast, but you can also find links to the podcast on all the podcasty places. But there's lots of topics on there. And so there's going to be some that, relate more. You'll see, you go through and go, oh, man, that one really makes sense to me. I'm going to listen to this one. And it's a good place to start. It's a really good place to start feeling less alone. Like, oh my gosh, other people are experiencing this as well. I'm not alone. There's other people struggling with the same thing. And there is resolution out there. You're not stuck with where you're at right now. So, yeah, you can find that on the website. You can find everything on the website, essentially. Links to everything.
Yeah. So, you guys, if you're feeling like maybe this mindset component is exacerbating your food intolerance, just to learn a little bit about it, have a listen to the podcast, and then you have the app as well, right? So which is different than the podcast. So the app is like actual steps to take if you were trying to implement change.
Exactly. So all the resources, the podcast is designed, to have information, exactly, to educate. And so that's why I have the podcast. Then there's the iPhone app, and sorry for anybody that doesn't have an iPhone. It's only on the iPhone right now. But the app is there, as a resource in case you don't have the capacity to see me for individual sessions. And then that's the other resource that you can come and have individual sessions with me and do the gut focus therapy program. But yeah, the app has gut directed imagery on it, different meditations, guided imageries and skills that you can use. It's a self-management kind of tool, I suppose, where you can work through the steps in there to help manage and reduce and resolve those symptoms. And then, of course, if you want that one-on-one support, where you can talk about your own unique situation and your own fears and worries and concerns and life circumstances and events, then that's when I'm available one-on-one.
Yeah. And if you guys are interested to speak with Michelle one-on-one, send me a message and we can try and organize something for you. Okay. Message me in Messenger. And then I know we're kind of out of time. There is one question I wanted to, or that Ellen had.
Yes.
Where's my cursor? Ellen said, are food intolerances a result of stress?
That's such a great question. It's a really great question. All right, here's my take on it. Food intolerances, of course, are complex. There can be many reasons for them. One of the aspects, and I go back to my little slice of the pie, one of the aspects is stress. So if your internal environment is as we've talked about and described throughout this talk, if it's stressed and upset and not functioning properly and all the little kind of nerve endings are on alert, zing, 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 zing all the time, and this isn't happening properly, and then you put food in the body, sometimes the body can go, this is all just too much. I can't cope. And so it starts to say, no, I can't digest that. That's too hard for me. And you can absolutely develop food intolerances in that way. It's a factor that you can remove essentially. And it's what I've found over time is that people who are doing kind of dietary interventions for food intolerances of different types, as you start to regulate the digestive tract through the nervous system. So when we're doing, like I noticed with my clients, the work that we do together means that eventually they stop reacting so much to food. And so often I say, just be patient with that. Just be patient because it'll come. Your body will start accepting food and have the capacity to digest better. That's one take.
Yeah, my take is that like, so a lot of people have a food intolerance, but it's exacerbated dramatically by the component that you're talking about, the stress and that kind of response, unresolved emotions. So it's like fuel to the fire, so to speak. And then if they have some like good studies on the sort of FODMAP diet effectiveness and gut-directed hypnotherapy effectiveness. They both seem to be about, it's kind of rough, but about 85% effective to people. So I feel like 85% of 85 out of 100 people are affected by both. So they have a food intolerance, and they're also have this issue with the stress, for example, that's making symptoms worse. And then that's why 15 out of the 100, the 15% of people who don't get relief on a FODMAP diet, they actually get relief with it wasn't a food intolerance, and it was all strictly what Michelle does, and it was more of a mindset or the emotions trapped and presenting as symptoms. And then there is 15% of people where gut-directed therapy doesn't work, and I haven't looked at that much, but perhaps those people have genuine food intolerance, and it's not the stress and anxiety. Because I'll have some clients who are like 100%, they're very confident that they say like, hey, stress, anxiety, it's not a role. I have these symptoms like all the time, doesn't matter. So that's kind of my take. I think 85% of people, it's definitely both, and then 15% either way, it's just one thing. So definitely, like Ellen, like it can be a food intolerance only, or it can be your stress and anxiety only, and usually a combination of both, almost always.
And that because they affect each other, right? Because we're human and we're holistic, and so everything affects everything else in our body. And so I've seen that to give it the best chance, you want to attend to all those pieces, so that you can really overcome those symptoms rather than just to one side of it.
I just want to ask you, we can do a very quick answer for this one, because as I was talking there, I thought about it. If someone says to me, like, stress, anxiety, it's not a factor. Is that typically like they're probably correct? They know, or is it something that you don't know?
Ooh, that's a good one. I have a little question mark that goes on in my head, because it could be that person's level of awareness. And if their self-awareness is low, then they are likely to say to you, no, that's not happening for me. That could be, that's a little question mark I have, and that's something that I'd be interested just to try and tease out a little bit, just to make sure. But yeah, you're right. There are some people, and I find that often it's a microbiome problem. If they're not having the results they want from, dietary interventions and gut-directed, therapy, then it's something more. They need to have, more thorough kind of testing done. That's where I see. You're right. It could be. It's hard to know.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle. Let's wrap it up. And thanks everyone for joining us. Hope you found it useful. We'll speak to you guys next time.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.
See ya.